My name is Robert Gardner, though I usually go by Bob. I live in Hampton, Illinois. We had a Greek restaurant, which wasn't too far from where we lived. It was so much more than hamburgers or hot dogs. So my wife Nancy and I kept coming back, and whoa, we discovered Greek wine, and we discovered flaming cheese, and we discovered Greek desserts. The first time we'd ever been to Europe was we went to Greece, and that seemed kind of natural. We pretty much kind of did the touristy things. I remember walking up the steps of the Acropolis telling Nancy if this had been in the U.S., they would have long ago put in escalators or elevators, or they would have made it a real Disneyland kind of experience. But this was still the way it had always been. Then we got to the Parthenon, you know, obviously something I'd heard about all my life. And Nancy saying, okay, well, this is as far as we can go. I could have just as well been in my backyard and somebody said, well, there's a Parthenon. That was my memory of the Acropolis on my first trip. A big part for a blind person in independence is self-confidence. When I was in Greece on that trip, I had started using a white cane then. It was a telescoping cane. You can fold it up and it goes down to about a foot in length, and I could actually stick it in my pocket. And there were many times when I was in Greece on that trip that I had it folded up in my pocket. I was using Nancy as what they call a sighted guide. We plan to go back in a couple years, save up our pennies and go back again. The second time, I thought, I'm not going to be content to just stand back and say, well, there's a Parthenon over there. I wasn't sure what to do. I know I needed to write to somebody, but I didn't know who to write to.
Το όνομά μου είναι Ιωάννα Χουντουμάδη. Είμαι υπάλληλος Αμερικανικής Πρεσβείας στην Αθήνα. I'm a special consular assistant. I have been at this position 17 years. Mr. Gardner's letter was the first request we had received without content. He was requesting to stand on the first step of Parthenon monument and touch the marbles to see the monument with the eyes of his soul.
Looking back now, what did I expect? I'm not sure what I expected.
After some discussions with my colleagues, I called the director of the committee for the restoration of Acropolis. Πριν προλάβω ακόμα να τελειώσω, μου απάντησε βεβαίως θα κάνει ό,τι μπορεί και ζήτησε να στείλουμε κάτι γραπτό. Μόλις κλείσαμε το τηλέφωνο της, το στείλαμε.
When I finally found out that, yes, this was possible, that it was going to happen, well, I was amazed. I was really thrilled. It was like, wow, I couldn't hardly believe it. We walked up to the Acropolis, we went over to the guard shack, and I was expecting to see a civil servant in some sort of uniform. But instead, I found myself with Despina. I showed her the letter. She said, well, come on, let's go.
Για μένα ήταν πάρα πολύ συγκινητικό να προσφέρω αυτή τη λίγη βοήθεια σε αυτόν τον άνθρωπο, αυτή τη λίγη χαρά για μένα, αλλά για εκείνο ήταν μια τεράστια χαρά.
The first thing I know, Despina is showing me into the Parthenon. We're going into the Parthenon. I couldn't hardly believe it. I remember touching the marble to try and get some feeling for the size of the pillars. I tried to wrap my arms around one, but I could not even begin to put my arms halfway around.
Όταν μπήκε στον Παρθενώνα, τον είδα έτσι συγκινημένο και λίγο είχε κοκκινήσει κιόλας. Είχε μέσα του πολύ καλοσύνη και αγάπη. Αυτό είδα.
Her demeanor was so full of life. I remember she really wanted to be a singer, she wanted to be a performer. She was a very bubbly person. She not only took us around the Parthenon, it was the other temples and the museum, really going over and beyond what she was asked to do. And it's a very hot morning, and I'm hot and sweaty, and I'm sort of dazed by this whole experience. And Nikos came over, he was the foreman.
Πάντα κοιτώντας αυτούς τους ανθρώπους που περνάνε γύρω από το μνημείο και συνοδεύονται βέβαια από κάποιον, μας έκανε να αναρωτιόμασταν τι νιώθουν αυτοί οι άνθρωποι, τι καταλαβαίνουν. Και πολλές φορές θαύμαζα το κουράγιο τους που ανεβαίνανε όλη αυτή τη δύσκολη πορεία σε ένα δρόμο ανώμαλο με το βοηθό, ή βλέπεις αναπήρους ανεβαίνουν με αναπηρική καρέκλα που είχαν το σθένος να ανεβούν μέχρι επάνω. Δηλαδή, το λέω και συγκινούμε πραγματικά. Αν έβλεπα μια τέτοια περίπτωση, κατά κανόνα προσπαθούσα να τον αφήνω να μπαίνει με τη βοήθεια κάποιου φύλακα για να νιώσουν ό,τι μπορούν να νιώσουν περισσότερο. Καταλαβαίνω τη δυσκολία που έχουν.
I remember him asking me, well, what would you like to know about the Parthenon, and I still remember this so distinctly. So I decided, well, you're working on restoring the Parthenon, so when do you think this is going to be done? And he simply said, only God knows. And I thought, wow. In the U.S., you might have said, well, I'm scheduled to be done in 37 months, and we are now a month and a half ahead of schedule or something like that.
Δεν υπάρχει πρόθεση να αναστηλωθεί όπως ήταν αρχικά, ούτε και η δυνατότητα φυσικά. Αλλά είναι και μια λάθος αντίληψη καταρχήν να προσπαθήσει κανείς να το ανακατασκευάσει. Υπάρχει. Στην Αμερική υπάρχει ένας Παρθενώνας, μπορεί να πάει να το δει κανείς αν θέλει τρόποντινά.
Really, I thought was really kind of profound in ways, maybe a little bit Greek. Nikos was so realistic. He knew he had a project that who knew how long it would be. They could be working for years and years and doing restoring and maybe have an earthquake that could set them back even further than they were to begin with. I felt like a little kid shaking his hand. I think all three of those people showed a lot of initiative and a lot of welcoming spirit. Despina could have easily just said, well, yeah, okay, here, what did you say? You just want to go over and stand on the steps? Well, go over there and stand on the steps. And then she could think, well, I'm just done with you. Nikos could have been over in a corner somewhere waiting for these funny-looking Americans to go away. Joanna and the embassy, it would have been so easy to get a request like that and say, well, I'm sorry, we can't do this. And she didn't. So.
Ο Έλληνας έχει αυτό το χαρακτηριστικό, το φιλότιμο που λέμε. Εάν καταφέρεις να το βρεις και να το κεντρίσεις, κάνει θαύματα.
It's very easy for a blind person to be put in a box. Society sometimes almost defines what the box is. As the years went by after the Greece trip, I just decided that I needed to be more independent. I started blindness training in National Federation of the Blind Training Center. The idea was that as a blind person, you can do things that people thought you couldn't do. I was there by myself for 6 months. You had training in mobility, travel training, computer training, Braille. I'd learned how to cook. We also had wood shop, which sounds kind of crazy. We used power tools, we used power saws, drills, and everything. We lived in just a regular apartment house. Everyone had a white cane. They can start looking very similar. I didn't want to take somebody else's cane. I'd always have to explain that, no, I didn't come here from Greece, and I'm really not Greek ancestry either. They say that the biggest problem with blindness is not the loss of sight, but living with all the stereotypes and the low expectations of the world around you. Learning how to use that cane is something you can learn in half an hour, but being able to go out and use it and travel is something you have to do over and over again until you build up that confidence. I know after that experience there in Greece that you don't just have to take the standard dish. You can tailor it if you want to take the time and the initiative and try and make it happen. It shows you that it can be done. The Acropolis, that was very early on my road to independence. If I couldn't make that happen, well, maybe I could never make my training work. Before you start it, you wonder, how can I get up in the morning and even find the bus, let alone ride the bus? I use the white cane all the time when I'm out walking. I don't even take the garbage cans to the end of the driveway without taking my cane. I'm certainly a different person now than I was before I had the training, and a lot more independent than I was when I was in Greece. I'm looking forward to going back. I'm looking forward to being able to eat Greek food whenever I want. We had the ouzou over in the cupboard, and we drink Greek wine every so often. Nancy cooks Greek. We enjoy it all. It'll always be there.